It's hard to believe that the 2019 quarterback class is now over 6 years old. Pretty much all of these guys have gone through college, and some of them are currently in the NFL, but today I wanted to continue my Spotlight series as we're going to go ahead and talk about the top 10 quarterbacks from the 2019 high school recruiting class and see where they are just over half a decade later. There are some guys who've panned out, and some of them that I have no clue what they're up to nowadays. But before we get started with the video, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about the 2016 quarterback class. Okay, so coming in at number 10, we have former Clemson quarterback Taisun Phommachanh. I actually did a video spotlighting him a couple of weeks ago, so you guys should check that one out. Phommachanh came from a family that was absolutely crazy with football, as he had a couple of players who also played in college, including a brother who was a starting quarterback for UConn at one point. Phommachanh played for 2 different high schools while he was in the state of Connecticut, and was sort of seen as a phenom. At 6'4", he was super athletic and nearly impossible to bring down. Eventually he got to Avon Old Farms High School, which reminded Coach Dabo Sweeney of Lord of the Rings, and he did put up crazy numbers while he was there. During his high school prep career, he ended up having about 6,500 yards and 71 total touchdowns, and this guy was just absolutely insane. He had offers from pretty much every school in the nation, but would decide to commit to Clemson. He was ranked as the number 5 dual threat quarterback in the nation and the number 217 overall recruit. Phommachanh would arrive at Clemson all the way back in 2019, expecting to be the successor after Trevor Lawrence. That would not end up happening, as they would bring in DJ Uiagalelei to replace him in 2020, and Phommachanh had a couple of injuries and was just never able to see the field. He would attempt to be a starter at a Power 4 school once again, as he would transfer over to Georgia Tech, but he was stuck behind Haynes King, and literally only had 1 touchdown there. Ahead of the 2023 season, he would decide to transfer back closer to home and be close to his brother, and he would pick UMass. The Minutemen were arguably the worst program in all of college football, and quarterbacking was just not something they were very good at. Phommachanh ended up being decent for the Minutemen, as in his 2 years there, he had over 3,000 yards and also nearly 15 total touchdowns. Again, UMass was a terrible program, but he was semi-decent for UMass Minutemen standards. He ended up suffering injuries in both of those seasons and decided to hang the cleats up, and I have no clue what he's doing now. When it came to his time at Clemson, Phommachanh kinda stunk, but you don't have to because of the sponsor of today's video. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's a high-performance, whole-body deodorant that you can apply literally everywhere. What's actually really interesting is that Mando is clinically proven to control odors better than a shower with soap alone. For example, 12 hours after a shower, a man's normal odor level is a 5 out of 10. With Mando, on the other hand, it is literally a 0. What's even better is they have some awesome scents, as they have 4 signature blends that include Bourbon Leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. Personally, I've been using the Bourbon Leather body wash, and that is absolutely awesome. And the Mount Fuji deodorant smells so good that it has me totally confident when I walk out the door each morning. Mando is also great because it doesn't stain your clothes, it's made with skin-safe ingredients, and unlike most traditional deodorants, it's more of a pre-odorant, so it's working ahead of time. Luckily for you, Mando has made you a special offer because you watch this channel. The starter pack is perfect for new customers, as it comes with a full-size stick deodorant, a cream deodorant tube or a spray deodorant, and 2 free products like wipes or a mini body wash. And how do you do that? Well, you use the code that Mando gave me, which is SCOTTF, SCOTTF. If you want to smell good at your next tailgate, game, or any sort of event, be sure to get Mando products using my code, and you can smell like me. Thanks again to Mando for sponsoring today's video. Coming in at number 9, we had Max Duggan. He was one of the biggest quarterback recruits to ever come out of the state of Iowa, and I remember him getting a ton of attention. Obviously, Duggan was a phenom, and while he was at Lewis Central High School, he played football, baseball, basketball, and even ran track. He was more of a dual threat quarterback, as he had 24 passing touchdowns and 25 rushing touchdowns. After becoming the Iowa Gatorade Player of the Year, he eventually was a 4-star and ended up choosing to go to TCU. This was a huge get for the Horned Frogs, and it really ended up paying dividends for them in the long run, as a true freshman, he'd actually passed for 2,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. He then had about 2,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in 2020, and then was decent in 2021. He was okay his first 3 years, but then all of a sudden, he went crazy in 2022. During a season in which he was a Heisman finalist, Duggan passed for nearly 4,000 yards, 32 touchdowns, and he also ran for 9 more on the ground. He had a ton of gutsy and incredible moments for the Horned Frogs as he led them all the way to the national championship, where they were unfortunately slaughtered by Georgia. After the season was over, Duggan was drafted in the 7th round by the Los Angeles Chargers, and he was taken at pick number 239. This in itself was a pretty big accomplishment for him. He was not able to make it, as after a little bit of time with the Chargers, he'd end up with the St. Louis Battlehawks, and now he is currently in the CFL. Duggan is one of the best quarterbacks in TCU football history, and he really had a good college career. Coming in right in front of Duggan was Tua Tagovailoa's little brother, Taulia. I remember hearing about this guy for quite some time, as obviously he had big shoes to fill with his older brother, and for the most part, he lived up to it. He actually had an incredible high school career, and he ended up at Thompson High School in Alabama, where he put up a ridiculous amount of yards. He was considered a 4-star recruit, and everyone knew where he was going to end up. He ended up spending his freshman season at Alabama in 2019, as he was the backup to his older brother, and then Mac Jones. He played very sparingly while he was in an Alabama uniform, as in total he had about 100 yards and 1 touchdown. Ahead of the 2020 season, he would follow Mike Locksley over to Maryland, where he ended up starting a couple of games. He really took off in 2021 though, as that was his best statistical season, throwing for nearly 3,900 yards and 26 touchdowns. He followed that up with back-to-back 3,000-yard campaigns in both 2022 and 2023, and in total, he finished with 11,356 yards and 77 touchdowns. He also ran for 13 more. Taulia was not considered much of an NFL quarterback, as he'd ultimately end up going undrafted. He played in the CFL for a little while, and now he's currently with the Massachusetts Pirates of the Professional Indoor Football League. It's a little bit of a fall from grace for Taulia, but it's hard to say he was a bust because he was actually really good at Maryland. Ahead of Taulia was a player whose scouts ultimately missed on, and that was quarterback Dylan Morris. Obviously, he was a blue-chip recruit, and coming out of the state of Washington, he put up big numbers while he was in high school. He threw for over 9,815 yards and 99 touchdowns during his infamous high school career, and he was 7th all-time in high school passing yards, just ahead of Jacob Eason. He'd actually arrive at the same school that Eason was at, as Morris would commit to Washington, but unfortunately, he was never able to make it work while he was there. He started a couple of games in 2020 and ended up having 2,500 yards in 2021, but that was his best season. He had 14 touchdowns and 12 picks, and then when Jimmy Lake was fired, Dylan Morris was sort of done too. He never played much his last 2 seasons, and then ahead of the 2024 season, he would transfer over to James Madison, where he would end up throwing 1 total pass while he was there. He's apparently now going into coaching, as he's an assistant running backs coach at Alabama, and I assume that's because of the Kalen DeBoer connection. Either way, Dylan Morris never panned out, but he did have a couple of good moments in a Washington uniform. Number 6 ranked quarterback ended up having a great football career, as it was Sam Howell. Coming out of Sun Valley High School in North Carolina, Howell was an incredible player, as he had nearly 13,000 yards and 145 touchdowns, while also rushing for 3,600 yards and 60 touchdowns. After originally being a Florida State commit, Howell would flip to North Carolina due to Mack Brown becoming the new head coach. Howell ended up starting instantly for the Tar Heels, and he was tremendous in his 3 years at North Carolina. He had 3,600 yards as a freshman, 3,500 yards as a sophomore, and then 3,100 yards as a junior. In total with the Heels, he passed for 10,283 yards, 92 touchdowns, and he also rushed for over 1,000 yards and 17 scores. For a while, Sam Howell was getting attention as being a potential number 1 overall pick, but he ultimately fell because of a somewhat disappointing junior season, and he was eventually taken with pick number 144 in the 5th round by the Washington Commanders. So far during his NFL career, he's really had just 1 season, as he started in 2023, throwing for 3,900 yards with 21 touchdowns and 21 picks. He had a horrendous offensive line, and after that, he was with the Seattle Seahawks, and is currently with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now getting into the back half of the video, the number 5 quarterback in the country was Graham Mertz. Coming out of Blue Valley Northwest High School, Mertz was absolutely incredible. I mean, he ended up throwing for nearly 4,000 yards and a Kansas State record 51 touchdowns as a senior, and because of this and his performance at the Elite 11, he blew up from a 3-star to a near 5-star recruit. He had committed to Wisconsin early and decided to stick it out with the Badgers. I mean, Wisconsin's not known for getting big-time quarterback recruits, but Mertz decided to go there, and he was given a ridiculous amount of hype. Unfortunately, Mertz was a mixed bag, as during his first start in 2020, he went berserk against Illinois, but that was honestly his best moment. He never cracked more than 2,200 yards or 20 touchdowns at Wisconsin, and ahead of the 2023 season, he would transfer over to Florida. In his first year as a starter, he threw for 2,900 yards and 20 scores, and he should have probably gone off to the NFL, but he instead decided to come back, where he got hurt, and then DJ Lagway took his spot. He ended up passing for a total of 9,000 yards and 64 touchdowns during his career before he was taken with pick number 197 in the 6th round in this past spring's NFL draft. It seems that he ended up making the Houston Texans roster, but I'm not quite sure if he really has much of a future in the NFL. At least he ended up getting there, because at one point it looked a little bit bleak for him. The number 4 quarterback in the 2019 recruiting class was a player by the name of Ryan Hilinski. He ended up having a pretty inspiring story, as after his brother had an unfortunate tragedy happen to him, Ryan ended up taking it upon himself to carry his brother's legacy. He put up nearly 2,800 yards and 29 touchdowns, and ended up having over 30 offers. Hilinski was going to be the next big thing, and decided to commit to South Carolina. He played a lot during his freshman year, as he would throw for 2,300 yards and 11 total touchdowns. This included an upset victory over Georgia. In 2020, he didn't get a chance to play much before he would eventually transfer to Northwestern in 2021. He was hoping to save his career at the Wildcats, but he was never able to get going in his 4 years there. He only combined for about 2,500 yards and also had only 10 passing touchdowns. Northwestern's not the greatest place in the world to play quarterback, and he just didn't seemingly have what it took to make it. His best season was as a true freshman, and as of now, I have no clue what he's up to. At number 3, we have arguably the biggest name in the 2019 class, and that was a guy by the name of Jayden Daniels. We know him as both an NFL star and a Heisman Trophy winner, but going back in time, he was a big deal while he was at Cajon High School. He ended up having over 6,400 yards during his junior season, which is absolutely mind-boggling when you think about it. He was a borderline 5-star recruit and ended up committing to Herm Edwards in Arizona State. This was a huge get for them, and as a true freshman, Daniels was pretty good for the Sun Devils. He threw for 2,900 yards and 17 touchdowns, but then in 2020, with everything going on in the world, it was just a funky season. He ended up bouncing back a little bit in 2021, finishing with 2,300 yards, but he had 10 interceptions to go alongside his 10 touchdowns. For a fresh start, Daniels would transfer over to LSU, where personally, I never thought he'd actually win the job, but boy did he prove me wrong. He threw for 2,900 yards and 17 touchdowns in 2022, before exploding and winning the Heisman in 2023 with nearly 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. He was taken with the 2nd overall pick by the Washington Commanders, and in his first year in the NFL, he set the league on fire, throwing for a grand total of about 3,600 yards and 25 touchdowns, and he also ran for 6 more and had a crazy Hail Mary pass. So far, he's dealing with an injury in 2025, but Daniels has always been an insane player. At number 2, we had one of 2 5-star quarterbacks, and that was Bo Nix. The son of a former Auburn quarterback, Bo arrived at Pinson Valley High School, where he had over 12,000 yards and 161 touchdowns during his career. I mean, that's pretty incredible, and after being Mr. Football, he followed in his dad's footsteps and ended up going over to Auburn. Like Jayden, he would start as a true freshman in 2019, and he was pretty solid. He ended up passing for a grand total of 2,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, but that was his best season in an Auburn uniform. He only had 2,400 yards in 2020, and then only 2,300 yards in 2021. His touchdown number dropped each and every year, and ahead of the 2022 season, he would transfer over to Oregon and play for head coach Dan Lanning. He was hoping to save his career, and that's exactly what he did. He ended up passing for 3,600 yards and 29 touchdowns, and then after returning in 2023, he got even better. This time, he threw for 4,508 yards, completed 77% of his passes, and also had 45 touchdowns. He would finish with a grand total of 15,000 passing yards and 113 touchdowns. He's also a good runner, and then was taken with pick number 12 by the Denver Broncos. Like Daniels, Bo Nix ended up playing his rookie year, and in 17 games, he threw for 3,800 yards and 29 touchdowns, and is one of the better young quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And finally, at number 1, we had the man himself, Spencer Rattler. Everybody knows about Spencer Rattler, as he was the most polarizing name in the 2019 class and was listed all the way up at number 1. Coming out of Pinnacle High School, he ended up passing for over 11,000 yards in his 4 years there, and he also had 116 touchdown tosses. Known for his incredible football skill and sometimes controversial personality, Rattler would arrive as the next great quarterback for Lincoln Riley and would sit behind Jalen Hurts for 1 season. He ended up starting in 2020 for the Sooners, throwing for 3,000 yards and 28 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he had a tough start to the 2021 season as he was eventually benched in favor of Caleb Williams, and then Rattler would transfer across the country to play for Shane Beamer at South Carolina. During the 2022 season, Rattler ended up passing for 3,000 yards with 18 touchdowns and would elect to return for the 2023 season. His numbers would improve a bit as his completion percentage went up, his yards went up, he ended up having one more touchdown and also cut down on turnovers. In total, during his 5 years in college, Rattler would pass for 11,000 yards with 77 touchdowns. He was also decent on the ground as he had 16 rushing scores, and because of his high school hype and how he had improved his final 2 years, he was good enough to be taken in the 5th round with pick number 150 by the New Orleans Saints. No one really expected Rattler to do much there, but due to some interesting circumstances, he actually got an opportunity, like Daniels and Nix, to play a bit as a rookie. Rattler would end up playing in 7 games in 2024, throwing for 1,300 yards with 4 touchdowns, but he also had 5 interceptions. So far in 2020, he's also gotten an opportunity to play, and this time he has 765 yards with 5 touchdowns and only 1 pick. The jury is still out on whether Spencer will ever live up to the hype fully, but right now he's in the NFL and fighting, so that's all you can really ask for. So yeah, 6 years later, the 2019 quarterback recruits are either making a career for themselves or out of football entirely. And what do you guys think? What do you think of the players on this list? What year position group should I do next? And what other topics should I also cover next? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you need to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.